Hello, welcome to the P3 Show. My name is Romeo von Herman, and today we're going to be talking about public safety as well as policing here in the city of Burlington, Vermont. And today I have a special guest with us, Chief Burke, and I'm super excited to have you here to chat more about that kind of stuff here. So without any waiting, the introduction is on you. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you're doing, how's your family's doing. Yeah. I feel like I ran into you at the airport. I think, was it your son you were,
yes,
who was traveling or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so my name is Sean Burke. I have the privilege of serving as the interim chief of police in the city of city of Burlington. Yes. I was previously the chief of police in the city of South Burlington, but before that I spent 21 years as a Burlington police officer. I did the lion's share of my career here in Burlington. I did initially start my law enforcement career in Woodstock, Vermont, a very small resort town in the central part of the state. Nice. So this August will mark 31 years of municipal policing in the state of Vermont. Wow. Yeah, so I live locally in Chittenden County. My wife is a nurse at UVMMC. I've got two sons. The one you saw at the airport is studies at Norwich University, serves in the Army. Okay. So he's at Fort Knox this summer for some training.
Is that where he was going when you were escorting him? Got it, okay.
And then I have a younger son who works in the trades here in Chittenden County. He just recently graduated from high school.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so it keeps us very busy.
That is pretty cool, yeah, because I remember seeing you taking your son to the airport, and I'm like, interesting, okay, cool. So that's amazing, really. And you know, I know a lot of changes happening in our city in terms of public safety, and there's a lot of evolution going on. There's new blood is coming into the team, a very diverse team, you know, from what I've noticed that have been hired, which I think is awesome. Because it gives a brand new perspective on what public safety looks like the next century or so in our city. And I was wondering, to that effect, where you think public safety is going in terms of getting new people into the force, and what are some of the things that they can be shown around in order to kind of bring a brand new view when it comes to public safety?
Yeah, sure. So our number one challenge right now is recruitment of sworn employees, so our sworn officers. That's where we have the greatest vacancy rate in the department. We're actively recruiting to fill those ranks. We have firm support from both city council and the administration in terms of the fiscal resources of getting that done. What we've learned in police recruiting really across the country is that we can no longer sit back and wait for applications to come in. We actually have to train our recruiters to go out and essentially headhunt for us, and it's an excellent opportunity. What we do see in the folks that are matriculating through our hiring process to be sworn police officers is they understand where policing is, and that there are a lot of cities like Burlington that are embracing more of a co-response or an alternative response, and those are areas that are quite fertile ground for the city of Burlington. Back in my early days in policing, we would often complain about having to go to the number of social service calls that we needed to, but that is when police officers were plentiful and affordable. Now police officers are expensive and scarce. So it's only logical that we seize this moment to build out the teams that are in place. So prior to my arrival, Chief Murad and the administration had worked, in the previous mayoral administration had worked really hard to stand up our Cape division. So we have our CARES team within that group, and that's kind of the clinical level of support. And then there's the community support liaisons. Yes. So that they are less than clinician level folks, but social workers that work in the community in response to a call or proactively to better serve those that are suffering with any number of needs related to either substance use disorder, being homeless, mental health crisis, impoverished, you know, limiting the ability to meet their basic life needs. Right. So, you know, that was built at a time when there was kind of a lot of police officers suddenly leaving the police force post-2020. This team was brought on, and now what we're doing is using this period of time to evaluate what went well with that implementation and what lessons have been learned, and now how can we move forward synchronizing those resources that we have in addition to our community support officers. So that's another professional staff, less than sworn is what we call it, team that helps really support the public safety mission here in Burlington. And then we also have the relationship with the street outreach team, and that's sponsored by the designated agency, Howard. And those, again, are less than clinician level folks that are really proactive, meeting people suffering in the community, meeting them where they're at, and then reconnecting them to services. Another evolution that's just come online to kind of better synchronize all this work is the situation table. I know the mayor spoke about this quite a bit, but essentially this is a model that was developed in Canada and used extensively. It then got down here into the States, and it's been used in areas like the South Shore of Massachusetts with great success. And what this really is a structured, almost ComStat type process. Convenes not only the government entities doing human service work, but all the non-governmental agencies doing that and other community partners. And anyone that's impaneled on this team can bring an individual that's at an acute need or acute level of risk, bring their situation to the folks at the table. It's discussed through a series of what's called filters. Filter 4 being the most important. That's where the right entities volunteer to say, yes, I'm connected with that person, or yes, we serve that problem. And then within 28, the Filter 4 team has the responsibility of coming up with an intervention strategy and having that in place and meeting with the person within 24 to 48 hours. And then we follow back up on that in 7 days, so it holds us all accountable.
So is this team made up of the folks that are already there at the police department along with the administration and the social services? Is it like, do you guys choose who needs to be on that and who does not need to be on that?
So Ingrid Jonas, the mayor's senior advisor on public safety, convened the group. When we were initially trained, there's about 70 of us. Okay. So if you can think of a social service provider in Burlington, they're involved, the fire department's involved, police department's involved with all of our entities as designated agency, UVMMC. It's really expansive. So
it's from all aspects of the community, from everybody that you just mentioned, creating one group that tackles these issues as collectively as possible.
Yes.
Got it.
And then, holding one another accountable, because
exactly.
If you're on that Filter 4 team, you've identified, like, I've got something that can help here. And again, it's to not, cure every woe in the person's life, but at least get them into a better spot, connected with services where they can find success moving forward.
Wow.
So this is a little new to Vermont. Burlington is the 5th table. The other communities that are using this are Brattleboro, Springfield, Bennington, and Rutland.
Right.
And they've seen great success in their outcomes, so we're very optimistic. We had our first meeting this past Wednesday, and now this process will be going weekly moving forward. So we have a lot of optimism around this initiative.
Right. So this is very relatively new initiative that just started, and since it started, and I know you said it's relatively new as well, have you seen any positive trend in terms of tackling the issues and kind of meeting the issues where they are rather than waiting what the results will be at the end of it?
Yeah, so again, we just had our first table.
Oh, okay.
And next Wednesday, we'll know how the 2 situations that we discussed yesterday, how the interventions fared in that regard, and then we'll be hearing new situations and identifying new teams and keep moving the work forward.
Right.
So,
would there be a sort of like and I know the mayor does public forums on public safety, would there be a sort of like not necessarily the police commission meeting, but like any public forum update, as it were, like maybe quarterly or every 6 months on how things are going through the data that's available, through whatever you deem that might be helpful for the public to know that, hey, we started doing this and this is the results we're seeing now. Is there something in the future that might be in the works?
Yeah, certainly there'll be a communication plan from the administration on this. Again, once the table has been in operation long enough, so we've got some meaningful data to share.
Right. Oh, that is awesome. Okay, that's pretty cool. One of the things that I always wanted to talk about, which I think is pretty important, I briefly brought up through commission meeting, is the having a good relationship between the community and our law enforcement. And you do have a very extensive background both in Burlington, South Burlington, and I'm guessing hopefully other cities or small towns here in the state. And I was wondering, is it difficult based on just all that experience, helping develop a relationship between the community and law enforcement in Burlington compared to other smaller towns in light of all the stuff that has been happening post-COVID?
Yeah, so I mean, quite a bit to unpack there. You know, first, this business is all about relationships.
Yes, yes.
And there are definitely members in our community that lack trust in the police, lack trust in government, and we recognize that. And you know, that's why we advance the work of, you know, trying to get those community connections. Unfortunately, you know, given the number of sworn police officers that we have, we can't necessarily engage in all the neighborhood-based initiatives that we used to. But you know, a small step in this regard is what the community has enjoyed this spring. Our foot patrols downtown. We've had a significant investment of human resource in City Hall Park and on the Church Street Marketplace since April. And anytime that you can get cops out of their cars, out into a civic space like the park or the marketplace, you know, people are really inclined to come up. We get a lot of thank yous, we get a lot of feedback, and it's just an opportunity to chat with people. And the public can kind of understand, like, it's a police officer, it's just like any other job, it's a person in that. And it also affords, you know, officers an opportunity to hear what's going well in a person's neighborhood, where the challenges are, and to then think critically about what could be the right resources to bring to bear. You know, because police officers really are great problem solvers, and they become frustrated if they don't have the resources in order to try to solve the problems.
True.
And you know, I think what's fascinating about Burlington and really the value prospect is that we've got a lot of resources that we can refer out to. You know, an area that we need some more assistance with is accountability for folks that are service and treatment resistant and you know, failing to change their behavior.
Right.
And you know, the administration definitely has an idea about that. The administration's been talking about the city ordinance process and how there is a criminal infrastructure to our civil ordinance, to our city ordinances. But what they're advancing right now through City Council, it's at the Ordinance Committee, is not only bringing back potential criminal penalties, but adding in a restorative process. And it's a way by way of example, this is not set in concrete because it hasn't gone all the way through the Ordinance Committee, but really what the thought is, if a person receives a ticket for, say, a open container, you know, you have the option of paying the waiver fine to resolve that ticket. You will then potentially have an option to, in lieu of the waiver fine, go to city circle, restorative process, engage in a contract, take responsibility for your actions, and then move forward in that way. Or if you're non-compliant, you fail to pay your fine, you won't engage in city circle, the city attorney could file that case in the criminal legal system, and we could begin to leverage that in order to address some of the quality of life behaviors that have eroded over the last few years, particularly in our, you know, our parks and other public areas. Right.
I wanted to ask you, I know a lot has changed since the last time you left as a chief and then now came back. Is there something that you enjoy differently this time around than you've done at the beginning? Or rather, the last time you were around. Is there something that you like, oh my gosh, this is so cool and so different than the first time you were the chief here?
Yeah, so when I left service in 2018, I was the deputy chief of operations.
Okay.
So I wasn't the chief of police.
Oh, okay.
So I think the first thing that strikes me with your question is the honor that it is to serve the Burlington Police as the interim chief. You know, when I joined the police department in 1997, I never thought that I would be the chief of police at some point in time. So there's a distinct honor in that. And also it's a leadership challenge. You know, I was the sitting chief of police in the city of South Burlington, and that's a fantastic job, amazing community support, a lot of resources. But Burlington has a whole host of other challenges. And, personally, professionally, I really found that a hill that I wanted to climb, and I wanted to climb that hill with the team here at BPD because the city had invested so much in me in the 2 decades that I spent here.
I will admit that the team that we have here are very unique, really. I got to know them through when I used to work for Green Mountain Transit. They're very, very caring folks in there. And one of the things that I did notice is that they really need a wraparound support, and just having a leadership or folks that they can look up to, where they feel comfortable, that they're supported, but also at the same time, just the morale, it's like these guys are incredible, amazing people. And my interaction with them has always been a very positive one with all of them, at least almost all of them anyway. And when I think about all the stuff that they go through for the only 4 years that I worked at the bus station, is that these guys put up with so much stuff. And I mean, I'm not a police officer. I put up with a lot. I can only imagine if I was in their shoes. I mean, it's a different ballgame altogether. And so I really feel for them, and I'm just happy to see that things are slowly evolving to the point where now I see them, not only are they out there, but like you can engage with them on a human level, talk to them, they smile, joke with you, and so on and so forth. So I'm seeing a lot of things in the positive direction. But what I wanted to find out more was, at the time that I was still, it's not like it was 100 years ago, but I've only been at my current job for like nearly 3 months. But when I was at downtown area working there, one of the things that I've noticed was an issue was, like you said, repetitive situation where people, smoke things on the street or drink or, do their shooting needles or whatever, and or people just fighting each other, open drugs right by the handies. There's that little gas station over there where there's a lot of activity going on all the time. So I'm trying to see, since you have joined us as the chief, have you seen any change in that dynamic, or are things a little bit improving, or is it the same issue that they're dealing with compared to, based on my experience in the past 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, thank you first for recognizing the work of our staff and the talent. And I just want to add on one quick part. A major focus of ours right now is leadership succession planning. We have amazing officers and professional staff serving with us, and we're investing in them to become future leaders of this department. And that's a legacy that BPD has a lot of pride in, and it'll be important to advance that moving forward. Having said that, back in directly to your question, I think by getting the cops out of their cars, we are seeing small improvements, but we're seeing very persistent unsavory behavior in the downtown district.
Yeah.
And that's why the officers themselves have really taken upon themselves to be out there and be proactive in that regard. We recognize that we don't have a solution for every one of these problems, and that in fact, nonviolent offenders that are even referred to the criminal legal system, typically because of our bail structure, the bail law structure, aren't held in jail. So we kind of just commit to doing the work day in and day out.
Right.
But we have seen some improvement in the downtown this spring, and now a few weeks into the summer, which we're proud of, but we know that it's work that if we turn our back on that it will likely erode back to a place where it was, or even slightly worse. And I talk a lot about with constituents from other wards in the city that have different public safety concerns, whether they're traffic enforcement or other things. And I have to be very candid. We're all in on the downtown right now. If we want a vibrant downtown, one of the strongest pieces of that foundation is good public safety.
Right.
And we're committed to that. And we'll make those adjustments, and that's a bit of a data exploration, and that's why we work with the administration and the data team to understand kind of what incidents are we being called to in what areas of the city, and then how, from a policing perspective, what's our strategy in trying to disrupt whatever that behavior is. And it's like a big game of chess at times. Okay. It can become a bit of a game of even displacement of the behavior, meaning, by way of example, you do a lot of high visibility patrols, foot patrols in City Hall Park. Typically, people that don't want to interface with the police, they'll find a different spot to go, and then we'll get new complaints in that area, and it's just you make those adjustments.
One thing I've noticed that as part of the safety component is that there are quite a number of people who prey on Burlingtonians, especially people who are going through difficult situations. And I'm probably certain that your department is working with state stakeholders and federal partners in addressing these people that are preying on, who are either in Massachusetts or New York, trying to bring so much drugs into our city. And it's always been my concern that there's a lot of people whom I see for the past 4 years anyway, every summer, brand new people coming in, trying to sell drugs by the transit center or in anywhere near the transit center, or just by BHS or on Church Street area. And I'm wondering, and I know you've briefly mentioned during the commission meeting the work that is being done. I'm hoping that, and this is more of a comment rather than a question, that because you did mention something that happened in Rutland led to something big being taken care of. I think, what was it, New York, Brooklyn or something, somewhere there. So I'm hoping that the people who are preying on our local residents, they're caught in time, so this way we don't lose more people than we've already lost. Because this has been really, really a big issue in our city, and I'm sure by extension in the state, and I'm sure this happens across the country. But based on just your experience as a chief over in South Burlington and now here, what do you think is that you see? And I know you've mentioned in the past, you don't have to say it again, but where do you see things are going in the future? Just if you can see anything into the future that you see in terms of drugs pouring into our cities, people being taken advantage of, and all that kind of stuff. Because I know your department there's a specific department within the department that's responsible for doing investigations and all that kind of stuff, and making sure that these do not pour in, or transient people are not brought in for the sole purpose of selling drugs to vulnerable people here.
Yeah, so I think our response from the Burlington Police perspective is got a couple of prongs to it. We've got some harm reduction efforts afoot, and that's primarily carried out by our community support liaisons and referrals out to other organizations for people that are struggling with substance use disorder. But really your question focused on what are we doing about mid to upper level traffickers. So we do have four detectives assigned to drug investigations. They work very hard day in and day out identifying trafficking organizations that are operating within the city. They do collaborate with both local, state, and federal partners on those cases. And our goal is always to, again, identify those that are making a profit in this space. Often, this drug trade involves firearms trafficking and sex trafficking, which is, very dangerous to the community. And we try to disrupt those organizations with federal prosecution. So that's important work that we advance day in and day out. What is really in the public eye, though, is in terms of what people experience of public drug consumption. Those are usually the folks that are not making a profit selling drugs. They may pool their money together to obtain a user quantity that they share on a street corner. Again, that behavior is unacceptable, and we address that. But those folks we're looking to refer to more wraparound services in order to try to get them out of the substance use disorder cycle that they're in. I think as a state, we've grappled with the opioid crisis for a number of years. We're not alone. This has ravaged our nation. I think what's what gives us a little bit of hope, if you will, is that our fatal overdose rate in the state of Vermont has declined. And I do believe that is through more harm reduction investment than enforcement investment. Specifically co-use and Narcan saturation, essentially, is saving lives. We know that. And we have a fire department they're the primary responders on our overdose calls, and they have leave behind kits, so people that are wrestling with substance use disorders have those resources at their fingertips. But we've got a whole different enforcement strategy for those that are trafficking drugs into the state. And the fact of the matter is, the money is so lucrative. The business model is so lucrative to bring drugs from whatever source city they may originate in to Vermont and take the risk of being apprehended and prosecuted for the thousands upon thousands of dollars that they'll make in the weeks before they're caught.
Right, right. That makes sense. Yeah, it's a very difficult situation. I remember a couple of times where we had folks overdosed on the platform where we gave them Narcans on the platform, literally. So around between 2022 through 2023 was the most that I've ever seen in, like, I'd say every week or maybe every 2 weeks, at least like 2 people overdose immediately. So it was a very tough year to watch what was happening, and I feel like things have slowly improved as we went towards late 2023 into 2024. I mean, it was still happening, but 2025 beginning, it's when I noticed that there's a trend. Maybe, like you said, our fire department members, give out those kits to people, but we also kind of kept also some in our kits over at the transit center at the time I was there, plus also having those needle sharp containers available on site. So this way, if somebody does it anyway, because sometimes you cannot stop somebody from doing what they're doing, especially when they do indiscreet in the bathroom, so have those sharp containers ready so they don't pass on diseases to other people and that kind of stuff. So, but based on my experience and from what I've seen the trend in the downtown core, both as a commissioner in the church marketplace and working at the downtown area, is I see a positive trend in part because of the Narcan, but also just education. People are becoming more aware that, hey, this is not only an issue, but there are like stuff that you can give to somebody that can maybe help, or a friend can help a friend, because they have, as a matter of fact, some of the people that I know who used to use needles, they have Narcans in their bags on hand, ready to be used. So they're probably aware of it subconsciously that, hey, I'm going to pass out, so hopefully I'll have a friend maybe who can just help me out, come back to life, hopefully. Yeah, it's a very, very interesting. To deviate from the subject to a much more interesting thing, I was wondering what is one thing that made you really want to come back? I know you said you want to take the challenge, the ladder, but what is one really fun thing? I know the team is awesome, I get that one, but what is one thing that you like, man, you know what, I really want to come back to Burlington and serve these guys?
Yeah, it's my love for the city and the organization.
Okay.
Yeah, and the pride of serving as a Burlington police officer.
Yeah.
And a lot of people ask me, like, why do you always wear your uniform?
Yeah.
And this is a privilege.
Yeah. I think you missed us. That's what that is.
Yeah. So, it was a great opportunity at a spot in my career where I was able to make this transition. Mm-hmm. Again, like I will start my 31st year of service in August. This show is probably coming to a close at some point.
Yes,
and if this happens,
well, hopefully not too long.
Yeah.
Hopefully you. The way I think, again, it's, the way I'm thinking is that one, you probably kept a good relationship with the guys and the gals back here at the PD, and so they already not only knew you as a colleague, but that relationship that you probably kept with them while you were chief over basically right across the pond, more or less. I don't think there's a pond between us and South Burlington, but yes. But I think that helped, and from what I'm noticing really is that these guys really like you a lot. They really do. I just get that vibe from when I talk to community members, and they're super excited that you're there, and so. But what I'm wondering, I know you guys are in the process of slowly going through searching for somebody and all that kind of stuff, and what are the chances of you continuing to keep serving us maybe another 20 years?
Well, 20 years is not it.
Okay.
So I'm here through March of 2027, as it stands right now, and the administration has a contract with the International Association of Chiefs of Police to do a nationwide search. I think that's a valuable process for the city because it allows a lot of voice through listening sessions for the desired candidates, characteristics of a desired candidate, and I think that is an important process that Burlington should go through. And I'm just humbled by the way that I've been received here, honored to serve here, and want to prepare the organization for the future. There's a lot of things that are very certain in police departments. One is you will work for a number of police chiefs. There's only X amount of years that chiefs really work, especially in a city that's as busy as Burlington with all the dynamics that go on. So, you know, I'm excited about what the next 2 or so years holds for us while I'm here with the organization. But again, it's also an excellent opportunity for us to invest in our current staff, because there's a whole hierarchy of opportunities before you're the chief of police. And we need to grow those candidates and get them ready for all those roles. And I'm certain that perhaps maybe not the next Burlington police chief comes from within, but I'd really be proud if the chief after is an internal candidate.
I hope so too, I really do.
And I think, you know, your observation about why staff may have been excited to have me return, it's because I was here, you're predictable, you know how things work, and it's not always like the latest idea or trend or fad that you need to bring into your police department, but rather some stability, some predictability, and a good focus on what our mission is, and that is to serve the public.
Right. No, that's pretty awesome, and I will admit I'm glad that you're here, and I know the future of the city when it comes to public safety will go through a lot of changes. And I think the most important is what future policing will look like in Burlington in the next 20 years, 30 years. I know things don't look the same they were when you started in your career, and I know a lot is going to change down the line. But my biggest thing is if we use what we've learned from the past and what's happening today and use that to promote not only the department, but some of the amazing work that they do, but also help create a more cohesive relationship, because it's been very contentious, to be honest with you, specifically here in Burlington. If that, not just the chief himself, because it takes, two to tango, like a group of people to do a change in any community or in any department. If the communities here in Burlington, because it's very evolving, there's a lot of new people that are moving in here in the city. So though we are about 40,000+ minus the students, I see the population increasing ever so slowly. But at the same time, if we can create programs down the line, and I don't know if this is something you would explore in the next year and a half or so, or maybe you could pass that on to whoever's going to be our next chief, programs within the department. And I know you guys have a lot to deal with, so this will probably be maybe like at the bottom of the burner right now, but something that would increase that relationship between the community and the department, I think is something that would really be an amazing legacy, not only to leave for the city, but also something that, there's a lot to remember you, besides the amazing work that you've done in the past and you're doing right now. But that is one of the things that I've thought when I moved here initially, and I noticed a lot of things that was happening between the police commission, the council, and the department, and I'm like, oh my goodness, why can't we find a common ground where we can all work together, where we're not at each other's throats all the time? We're not creating policies or programs where the department feels unappreciated or the communities feel like left out in the storyline of what it's like to be part of the community. An example would be like a friend of mine who actually still works for Green Mountain Transit. His brother used to be, maybe his last name is Grung. He actually was, I think, one of the CSOs, I think, before, or something like that. So because I know his brother and we worked together before, it felt really good to know somebody, because sometimes when you have somebody either within your family or a friend's family, the feeling is a lot different, when they're law enforcement personnel versus a friend, somebody who you don't have that much of connection with, So I know it's going to be difficult hiring people locally, in part because of living costs and all that kind of stuff associated with it. And of course, standards should never be compromised, as you said it in the past. But I'm hoping, as part of sort of like the relationship development, as it were, to tap more into the community and see who's interested in joining through UVM, through some of the new American families that are moving into the city. Surprisingly enough, I have a friend of mine whom I work with now who has a law enforcement background, and not here in America, but different place. And another person who actually used to be a military personnel who used to escort our, not law enforcement, but our military, used to help them, like diplomats and stuff like that in his country. And I remember him talking to me about him having some interest trying to join a police department. So, and I did tell him, why don't you apply at the PPD here? So there's, surprisingly enough, you'll be surprised that there are a lot of new American families who have law enforcement backgrounds. It's just they're looking for, and I don't know if the department has a sort of like a, like New American Outreach, maybe somebody within the department, like Gurung, he's a first American family, and I'm sure he speaks Nepalese or something like that. Like something within those individuals to use their resources and say, hey, you can reach out to that community. Maybe you have a Somali person in the department. You can reach out to that community, see who's available and who can join us. Of course, like I said earlier, the standard should always remain the same for everybody. So I was thinking something within those lines of future of policing, as it were, in our city. And I know in New York and other big cities, they have a lot of pool to choose from because of the amount of people that live there. But here is a little bit tricky because multiple things play into not being able to get the candidates that I'm suspecting that we're looking for here. But I'm noticing that to the people that I speak to, there are a lot of people who would love to be part of it, but it's just they're looking for, I don't know, something somewhere, somebody to reach out to them, so that's something that I've observed when it comes to communities who love to develop relationships with the department, but also maybe even participate in any way they can possibly do. One of the programs which I really am interested in doing, which I was supposed to be doing last January, was the ride-along program, or like the community policing, I believe that's what that is. Having that, shared with like organizations such as Green Mountain Transit, the airport, or Community Justice Center, inviting more people, kind of get to know us. Come on, let's have some programs where we can invite you in. You can learn more about us. This is who we are. This is some of the cool stuff we do. That kind of thing. Just, I don't know. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, no. So we're looking at our recruitment efforts widely right now, and we would love to have more Burlingtonians apply to be police officers. It solves a lot of the immediate barriers that others have in terms of housing and connection with the city. So we are interested in that regard. I think there's a plethora of opportunities for us. Where is public safety going in the future, I think was the first part of the question.
Yes.
I see it's more of a co-response.
Okay.
So like when we talk about our community support liaisons, or our relationship with street outreach, or efforts that our fire department is doing, it's trying to figure out what is the right resource for the problem that we need to solve at the time. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that that is the future of public safety, not only in Burlington, but across the country. Right. And lastly, about how do we build relationships now, absent formal efforts. We're doing so one incident at a time, one foot patrol at a time, and that's simply by connecting with people where they're at, with some empathy, figuring out what their problem is, trying to help them out, and really showing that the police department is a valuable resource. Right. For the community, and also, like I said earlier, just an essential fabric in how a community is vibrant. Because absent people feeling safe in neighborhoods or downtowns, that's a big barrier to people being out in those spaces. Right. So that's really the work of the police, is to broker that shared, respectful use of our neighborhoods and civic spaces.
Mm-hmm. How many new officers do we have now? Because last I remember was about, I think, 60-something. I don't know if that has changed, or do we have new folks join us?
Yeah, so unfortunately, this was a bigger retirement year for us.
Okay.
So we recently retired a few members of service, but they've done 20 plus years with us, and
Goodness, yeah.
that is often when we'll see folks move on.
Right.
For this summer class, we have one officer hired to go to the police academy. We screened about 16 applicants, and we were able to identify one person that met our minimum requirements, and we're not going to compromise our standards.
Absolutely.
So I believe as it sits right now, that we've got about 63 total sworn officers. So that's everyone from the employee that's going to go to the police academy, across the spectrum to where I sit in the chief's office.
Okay. Do you guys sworn in before they go to the academy, or after everything's completely said and done?
Yeah, no. So in this state, agencies employ our recruits, so we do swear them in as Burlington police officers before they go to the Vermont Police Academy. Okay. That's a 17-week experience. Okay. Once they graduate from the Vermont Police Academy, they return here to Burlington PD, where they ride with a field training officer, a series of field training officers over another 14 weeks before they're deemed what we call a solo level, and that's when they can go out and patrol on their own. Okay.
And do they, because I know, do most officers rather go solo a lot on their own, or do they always have partners with them every time?
Yeah, so typically we have one officer per cruiser, but often you'll see officers pairing up when they're downtown on foot and that kind of thing.
I noticed that.
And then dependent on the danger acuity of any call for service, either one or two officers are assigned. And some calls for service also require that a supervisor respond. So anytime that you see us responding to a neighborhood, you may see one officer response if the danger acuity is very low, a two officer response, or if you see three cars, it's typically a call that requires their supervisor to be there as well.
Got it, okay. And I was wondering, because I know the traffic part of the enforcement now, it's on the CSOs, community service officers, are doing this?
No. So CSOs, they can do parking enforcement.
Okay.
But the Department of Public Works has the actual formal parking enforcement team. Okay. But
I mean, like accidents, do they?
So yes, community service officers can do lower level property crash, fender benders, if you will.
Right.
Anything where there's been a violation of law, we'll have to dispatch a police officer to go investigate that and potentially do any type of enforcement work. But in terms of like traffic enforcement, so like speeding, stop signs, distracted driving, that's a police action constitutionally. That has to be a police officer that stops those cars.
Right.
And that's work that's cooled over the years. And right now it's work that we simply don't have a lot of human resources to put toward that. But it is an area that we do have access to a small highway safety grant. Okay. So some officers will do dedicated traffic enforcement on an overtime basis. Okay. And ideally, we pair any enforcement activities with data. So we look at areas where we have either a lot of complaints about reckless driving, or areas where we have crashes as a result of failing to comply with a stop sign, or any one of those examples.
Right. That is very interesting.
It adds to the legitimacy of traffic enforcement, because there's been, a lot of question about the motivations of the police.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think, to be honest with you, it comes down to individuals, how they feel about, when they see a police car right behind them.
You feel nervous. Yeah, I feel nervous.
Really?
You always check your speedometer if there's a police car behind you.
That's true. That is true. But one thing I've learned about when it comes to fear of something or somebody is that the level of responsibility that one takes, but also the level of relationship they have with that entity. One thing that I noticed is that quite a number of people, and I know this is not necessarily enforced, maybe it's a state police thing, I'm not entirely sure, is there are a lot of people who these days kind of sometimes just go through stop signs, or I don't know, there's no the bandwidth, I'm guessing, within our department here, but maybe they're from South Burlington, Essex, or Winooski, they're coming from there, and they're just, especially if you've ever seen on Main Street, they're just plowing through it and not following any rules and stuff like that. And I remember first time I moved here in 2021, I used to see a patrol officer parked right by the elementary school, right on Main Street, literally every single morning. I literally used to see there. But then I noticed that by mid-2022, that disappeared altogether. And then I used to see a lot of different patrol cars that are like parked in certain like key spots in the city. And but then I'm like, everything disappeared. I'm like, what happened? Why is nobody around? And in part, not to rehash the past, but I noticed that maybe it had a lot to do with the morale or something, or just due to the lack of having more folks available to keep doing what it's been doing. But to get back to the main point I was trying to make is that I never knew that the CSOs responded to low-level crashes and stuff until I looked at the job description very recently, you know. So I always associated that with, you know, because I used to live in LA and over in Virginia, Fairfax area, and I always associated that with uniformed officer responding to these things, and maybe because in part they have the bandwidth to meet those demands. Is this something that maybe your department will keep that way in the future, that they see that might be a better use of the CSOs, or do you think that would ever change when maybe we have more people available? And
yeah, I don't think we would change that whatsoever, because there's other demands that we could use additional human resources for on the sworn officer side of things. And what you describe of kind of the dwindling of proactive presence in the community, that's really congruent with that when people were leaving the Burlington Police in great numbers. So again, we hope to build back to a better number where we're doing more neighborhood-based policing, being responsive to the public, and you know that will take some time, of course. When you talked about trust and legitimacy in policing, like we as a profession, we have to understand that folks have either had lived experience that's been negative with the police. Maybe it's been here, maybe it was in another city, but nonetheless it was with the police.
Right.
Or generationally, there's trauma there where there's a lack of trust, and that's where we need to make sure that our policing is legitimate, in line with what the community expects from the police department, and that we're forging great relationships with the public at every intersect. Now, it is a customer service business, being in policing. However, the customers aren't always correct. So there can be adversarial moments in policing, but I'm a firm believer that if you build enough capital with your community, that they'll understand when you need to take action that is decisive and kind of correcting to someone in a way that they haven't experienced before.
Like they say, action speaks louder than words. So no, that's awesome. And I wanted to say that I'm genuinely grateful that you're here, and I know I see a lot of changes happening, and life is about evolution. You kind of progress one step at a time, and I think just seeing you here, I could feel the positive vibes that you bring to the table, and I think that people feed off of it, just like if you were in the ocean and you're feeding out there. So, but I'm grateful for you being here, and I wanted to end on this. If there's one thing for all the years that you've served us, with honorably, of course, if there's one thing you can take away that has been beyond, of course, your wonderful children and your family, if there's one thing that meant so much to you here, serving not only the city, but just serving your family, is there's one thing that, means the world to you that is amazing, being it not only achieved, but just serving our city?
Yeah, I think it's this lesson that was taught to me by a couple of different leaders within the Burlington Police, in that it's our job to meet people where they're at and leave them with their dignity. And that costs us nothing, and I think that is the highest level of service that we can provide. And I'm just thankful for all the opportunities that the city of Burlington has afforded me, and it's a distinct honor to be back here at a time where there was an acute need for a police chief to be selected as that person and serve in this moment.
That is awesome. And you did say that, are your both sons serving the military?
No, my oldest is
serving,
and my youngest is in the trades.
Okay, he's in the trades. I want to thank you, both of them and your spouse for serving, because each is serving in their own thing in the community and our country, of course. And I'm grateful to you, and I'm genuinely super happy that you are our chief.
Thank you.
You know, I know it's not easy, not only being running a very complex department, but also, you know, just being part of city government itself. And so I'm super happy. It's just, I feel like the dynamic has changed, and I think Burlington has a chance to turn the tables around, you know, because we're unfortunately getting, if you ever read the news, a little bit of not a reputation. You know, I don't know why, but but I think with having you at the helm of the department and key decisions, you know, being made out here, really, I see a positive trend happening. So thank you for all you do for us, and I know changes are coming. You know, as they say, whether you like it or not, it's coming. So.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity of being here today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us. It's great to be here. And this has been Chief Burke and the P3 Show. And we look forward to having you next time. Thank you.